Welcome to Politics for Patriots. Here's your host, the eviscerator of progressive nonsense, the executioner of imbecility, and the grim reaper of BS, Eddie Zipper.
All right, welcome to episode 89 of the Politics for Patriots podcast. Please subscribe on iTunes, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get podcasts. And remember, every single time you subscribe to a conservative podcast, a liberal somewhere sheds a tear.
A Happy Meal? We'll get you one of those Happy Meals. You got a Happy Meal? Can we get a Happy Meal? Will somebody get you a Happy Meal?
If you follow politics closely, you have got to go to Predict It and get in on the political markets there. You can use all your knowledge of what's going on to invest in what is going to happen. Okay, I bought shares in Trump will not be impeached in his first term. I bought shares in Joe Biden will not win the Democratic nomination. I bought shares in Pete Buttigieg will be the next to drop out. Okay, this is the best time to get in on the action because if you go there now and open an account, Predict It is going to match your initial investment up to $20 as long as you use my URL. It's predictit.com/promo/Patriots20. That's predictit.com/promo/Patriots20. I mean, as long as you are going to know everything about politics, you may as well make a few dollars in the prediction market while you're at it. All right, big surprise. Democrats would like to renegotiate the Constitution.
I am shocked. Shocked. Well, not that shocked.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has used her Twitter account to gin up another idiotic anti-electoral college news cycle. I usually don't even waste my time talking about issues like the electoral college and getting rid of it because it's such a total and complete waste of time. But I'm gonna do it today because it is important not to let complete and total ignorance go unchecked.
I am not the expert.
And of course, when AOC says something like this, then all of the liberal punditry out there has to get on board and pretend it makes sense. So AOC is like, we shouldn't even have it an electoral college. And then all the Vox and the other liberal internet rags all go, oh! Yep. Really, I shouldn't have to be here to explain this. It was her 5th grade social studies teacher's job to explain this to her. And then after that, it was her 9th grade civics teacher's job. And then after that, it was her PLS 101 professor's job to explain it. But all those people seem to have failed miserably and totally dropped the ball on teaching her how our country works. And now she's been elected to the House of Representatives, and we're all paying the price for her ignorance. To be fair, maybe they did teach it, but Alexandria was sick that day. Or maybe she was there, and she just didn't listen. Or perhaps she listened, and she just didn't care. Or, and I know, this sounds crazy, but maybe, just maybe, she only hates the Electoral College because in the current era, it has benefited Republicans. Maybe everything these people do is based on partisanship, and all of the political philosophy behind it is just pretend. Maybe it's not about rationality or logic or even understanding anything at all.
It's all about feelings and celebrating differences.
All right, so that's fine. In the current era, the Electoral College has benefited Republicans and it has not benefited Democrats. And that's not even just, the Bush and President Trump, but if you go back further, really no Democrat has ever benefited from the Electoral College. Rutherford B. Hayes and Benjamin Harrison, who both lost the popular vote, both won the Electoral College in the 1800s, and they were both Republicans. So, it's never been a benefit to Democrats, but it's not there to be a partisan thing. You can't help it if it benefits you. You can't help it if it doesn't. All right? The problem we have here is that Democrats hate free and fair elections. The party leaders are completely without principles. If the Electoral College benefited them, they would be telling us how super important it is. They'd be saying, oh, it's sacred and we need it. God, if we ever lost the Electoral College, it would be a disaster. And that's all there is to it. They don't really believe anything based on principle or political philosophy. Everything that they believe is based on, will that help our shitty party? I, on the other hand, would be on the side of the Electoral College no matter which party seemed to benefit from it. Why? Because I understand what the Constitution is, and I understand how it works. I understand how our entire system of government works. So like I said, I don't usually talk about things like the Electoral College. I said generally speaking that it is a waste of time to talk about this issue. The only thing to be gained by talking about this at all is to dispel ignorance. And that's why I'm going to do it today. Because, spoiler alert, Democrats are not going to get rid of the Electoral College. Article 5 of the Constitution makes it nearly impossible to change the Constitution. It is extremely difficult. But it is even more difficult, even more impossible, to change the Constitution on this matter. Here's why. In order for the Constitution to be amended, in other words, in order for the Electoral College to be scrapped, let's not do it anymore. Let's just count up all the votes, and whoever got the most votes will be president. That would require 2/3 of both houses of Congress to propose a constitutional amendment. That is just to propose the amendment. It's a two-step process to amend the Constitution. First, there's proposal, and then after that, it has to be ratified. Just to propose it requires 2/3 in both houses of Congress. Do you know how hard it is to get 2/3 in both houses of Congress to agree on anything? There's only 3 ways to do that. Number 1, the issue has to be so obvious that neither party can even come up with a question about it. It has to be super obvious. Number 2, one party has to control a supermajority. If a party controls 2/3 in both houses, then they can do extraordinary things. Maybe even propose a constitutional amendment. Number 3, the will of the people has to be widely and unmistakably in favor. Those are all extremely rare situations. 2/3 in both houses is a ridiculously high threshold in any case, but it's even higher in the case of the Electoral College. Why? Because we have a Senate. And who is represented there? The states. And they are all equally represented. In the House of Representatives, it's not like that. California is 53 times more powerful than, like, Wyoming in the House of Representatives because California has a much larger population. But in the Senate, those 2 states are equally represented. If you want an amendment to scrap the Electoral College, you're saying to the 2 senators from Wyoming or North Dakota or Alaska or whatever, one electoral vote state we're talking about here, you're saying to them, and really you're saying to a huge majority of the states, maybe about 40, hey, please sign on to surrender your power to the great big states with huge populations. I mean, what do you think they are, morons? Now, there are some partisan senators who would gladly vote away their state's power in a second if they thought it might benefit the Democratic Party just a little bit in the short term. But mostly, if you have good senators, they are not going to do that. Because of that, you will never get 67 senators to agree to get rid of the Electoral College. In 1969, they tried to propose an amendment that got rid of the Electoral College, and the president would be chosen by the popular vote. And it got a lot more than 2/3 in the House of Representatives. Got about 79% of the votes were yes. It was 338 to 70. It was wildly popular in the House. It didn't matter if you were a Republican or a Democrat. Okay, 184 Democrats voted for it. 154 Republicans voted for it. Of the 338 who voted for it, and by the way, it's not a partisan issue. People like to pretend it's a partisan issue. It's not. It's a size of the state's population issue, which sometimes tends to correlate with party, but not always. So, of the 338 in the House of Representatives who voted for it, about 43 of them were from California. That's over 10% of every yay vote came from California. 38 of them were from New York. There's another 10%. 20 were from Illinois. That is over a quarter of the yay votes right there from 3 states. So it passed easily in the House. Then it went to the Senate where it was dead on arrival. It got filibustered into oblivion. And guess what? That's the whole reason the Senate exists. They did exactly what they exist to do, which is to protect the small population states. But we're going to get to that. First, let me finish this. Anyway, there was broad bipartisan support in the House. It was dead on arrival in the Senate. So they failed to propose the amendment. If they had succeeded, it wouldn't have become an amendment to the Constitution. It would still have had to be ratified. Ratification is even more difficult than getting 2/3 in both houses. To ratify, you need 3/4 of the state legislatures to agree to the amendment. Good luck with that. You need 3/4 of the state. That's 38 states you need, and almost every single one of them will be throwing away their power to big states like California and New York. In this situation, like in the Senate, California does not have an enormous advantage. They only have that advantage in the House of Representatives. You would never get 38 states on board. Ever. And that is the point of all of this.
I'm here to help you with your history report.
The Electoral College exists for the same reason that all these other things in the Constitution exists. It's the most fundamental fact about this country, and the Democratic Party pretends not to understand it. The Democratic Party likes to say, oh, democracy, democratic, it's our democracy. Oh, our democracy, oh, that would be bad for our democracy. Oh, democracy this, oh, democracy, democracy. It's the word they use to scare people into thinking we're all done for. It's the word they use to manipulate people into supporting them. Everything they do is political manipulation. This is no different.
You don't hate children, do you?
So democracy is their magic word. And democracy is an important element of our government, right? We're a democratic republic, and democracy is an important part of how we do things. That's how we elect our representatives in the House. And since the 17th Amendment, it's how we elect our senators, too. But there are other words, just as magical, that Democrats don't give a shit about. One of those words is federalism. Federalism. That word should be just as magic as democracy. People should go around fretting about our federalism. You know, the fact that people don't go around fretting about our federalism is one of the biggest problems we have in the entire history of this country. If we had politicians out there who went, oh no, our federalism, they're going to steal our federalism, this will damage our federalism, that would be a good thing. But that word doesn't have the same cachet to it as the word democracy, because people don't know what federalism means or how it works or what it does or why we have it. The Civil War wasn't just about slavery, it was also about federalism. The Union was protecting federalism. The brand new Confederate States of America, what were they? What did they have? Confederalism. Federalism and confederalism are different types of intergovernmentalism, which we have in the United States. This episode is filled with great big words. Intergovernmentalism, that's what we have in the United States. What kind of intergovernmentalism do we have? Federalism. Fought a war to protect federalism. Under confederalism, you can keep your slaves. Under federalism, slavery is going to be abolished. So it seems like federalism is a pretty important thing to protect, even though you don't hear any politicians going around fretting about our federalism. You don't ever hear AOC on Twitter being like, oh, our federalism, oh, this is the end of our federalism, right? There's no articles in The Atlantic about Donald Trump being a disaster for federalism, the end of our federalism. But it's important. It's a form of intergovernmentalism, which means a bunch of different governments working together under one system. And the United States of America is really good at that. The Confederate States weren't any good at it. They had sucky intergovernmentalism. And it failed because it wasn't set up to be a great system of intergovernmentalism. It was set up to make sure that everybody could protect slavery. It was very short-term thinking. You can tell they were Democrats. Okay, so federalism. This is the fundamental thing that the Democratic Party pretends not to understand about our country. And maybe they really don't understand. I mean, a lot of them don't seem that sharp, to be honest. But we're not just a bunch of people under one giant, one-size-fits-all national government. We are 50 state governments who agreed to join together into intergovernmentalism under a federal government. We are the United States of America. States. Intergovernmentalism. That's what the Constitution is about. It's an agreement for how the intergovernmentalism will work. The Constitution, never forget this. Remember this sentence forever. The Constitution is an agreement between the states. It's an intergovernmental pact between the states. Patrick Henry said that the Constitution should open with the words, "we the states," instead of "we the people." I mean, it's not as rhetorically attractive. "We the people" sounds wonderful and aspirational. But "we the states" is much more accurate. The Constitution is an agreement between the states. It was negotiated to make every state want to be a part of the intergovernmental system. There was a give and take to get all the states on board. Therefore, they had to make lots of compromises because no state wanted to give up their power in order to become slaves to some other group of states. It's like if I got a group of people together and I said, hey, you know what we should do? Let's pool our wages. And then we'll each take from the whole. And they said, okay, maybe. What's your plan? And I said, well, I think the most important thing is that we give 80% of the money to people with the initials EZ. Then what's going to happen? Everybody walks away except for me. It wasn't a good deal for them because I got all their money. See, if I really wanted to work that deal out, I would have to offer them incentives. Here's why you want to be a part of this. And then maybe they'll join together with me. Okay? That is how it was for the states at the Constitutional Convention. You want me in your intergovernmental system, you sell me. You find a way to bring me in. I'm not just going to give up my power. It had to be a good deal for them, or they were going to walk and not ratify the Constitution. That's why the Constitution almost fell apart over Article 1, the very beginning, over Congress. Right? Big population states say, hey, you know what would work great for a Congress is if the big population states are more powerful in Congress. Okay, so let me get this straight. The big population states think that the big population states should be more powerful.
I am shocked! Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
Hey, guess who didn't agree with that? This is also shocking. Small population states weren't feeling super pumped about that idea. They say, I don't think we would enjoy being a part of this intergovernmental system you're creating here because we are small population states. We don't want to be pushed around by the big population states. Okay, so they're not feeling super pumped about it. So they were going to walk away, and everybody says, hey man, let's make this work for everybody. Nobody walk away from the table. We'll fix it. Boom. Connecticut Compromise. Somebody says, hey, I have an idea. We'll have 2 houses of Congress, a bicameral legislature, where big population states are more powerful in one house, and all the states are equal in the other house. That's how we got the House of Representatives and the Senate. It's also why Democrats and their liberal Vox and all these other internet rags always publish articles that say, let's abolish the Senate. Because they want to renegotiate the Constitution. They want the big population states to be powerful and the rest of the states to just have to go wherever California and New York and the others lead them. Okay, so after the Connecticut Compromise, which says, hey, we'll have 2 houses of Congress, and one will be great for big population states, and one will be great for small population states. Once we have that compromise, nobody wants to walk away anymore. That's the magic of compromise. It kept the big population states happy with the House of Representatives. It kept the small population states happy with the Senate. The Electoral College is the same compromise. Bigger population states are more powerful, but it's adjusted so that states like California and New York don't rule over all of us. Remember, like I said before, the federal government is an agreement between the states. And there's a list of powers in the Constitution that belong to the federal Congress. It's in Article 1, Section 8. Those are the only powers that belong to the federal government, or the intergovernmental system. And guess what they all have in common? They are all for managing all of the states. Things like creating an army and a navy, that's to protect all of the states. Regulating interstate commerce, that's to protect all of the states. All of their powers are there to regulate the states as a group. None of their powers exist to just go into a state and start making laws for the people state by state. Of course, they found ways to do that and manipulations that allow them to do that. But there's nothing in the Constitution, really, that allows them to do that. Okay, most of that they do that seems like they're allowed to, that's from the Commerce Clause. They're regulating interstate commerce, but they're not really. I don't want to get into that. That's like a whole different show. But, okay, I guess sometimes it feels like the federal government has more than just a list of enumerated powers and that they can do anything they want. But that's because Democrats who don't understand or care about federalism took the Commerce Clause, the Interstate Commerce Clause, and they stretched it out like silly putty so it could cover everything that the federal government wants to do. But that's a different show, so we're not going to get into that. It is all done under the Interstate Commerce Clause. The federal government is there to manage the states. The federal government is a collection of states, the United States. That's how federalism works. Now, the word federalism is not as sexy as the word democracy, but it is just as important. Federalism. The federal government derives from the Constitution, which is a negotiation between the states. If it had called for an election of the president through a popular vote, the small population states would have walked and there would have been no agreement. If Democrats understood federalism or cared about it, they wouldn't say that the Electoral College is anti-democracy. They would understand that 50 states choose someone to be head manager of the agreement between the 50 states. When you understand federalism and you can understand the Constitution as it actually is, which is an agreement between the states, then you can ask smart questions like, hey, wait, How is it democratic to let 2 or 3 big population states have all the say in who will be the manager of issues affecting all the states? That's not fair. That's not democratic. Democrats rely on people not to understand how the systems work, how the United States works systematically. Because if you actually understand our system of government, the idea of a popular vote seems stupid to you. A popular vote to pick the president, that seems stupid to you if you understand the system. If you know that the federal government is an intergovernmental system, and you say, okay, 2 or 3 states get to choose for the 50 states. That's insane. Democrats only say it because either they don't understand or they assume you don't understand. Allowing California and New York and maybe Illinois and a couple other states to decide everything for the whole country is anti-democratic. That's their favorite word. That's fundamentally undemocratic. If the Democrats want the election of the president to be more democratic, here's what they should actually be advocating. They should advocate that each state get 1 vote for who will be the president managing all of the states. Then it would be democratic. Because every 1 state, 1 vote. That's much more democratic than California gets 55 and Wyoming gets 3. So maybe it should be Republicans out there saying, we want an amendment to the Constitution. The Electoral College isn't fair. Every state should have the equal number of votes. Because that's the exact same. That sounds crazy. That would never happen because Republicans don't do that. But that would be doing the exact same thing that the Democrats are doing right now. It would be saying, hey, we want to renegotiate the Constitution so that it'll work even better in our favor of our political party. Which is a garbage attitude, and I'd have nothing to do with it. But you could do it just the same. You could say it would be more democratic. If we did do it that way and every state got 1 vote, Trump would have won about 2/3 of the electoral votes in a crazy huge landslide. But we don't do it that way, and I don't advocate for doing it that way, because if that method had been proposed at the Constitutional Convention, the big population states would have walked. And they would not have ratified the Constitution because it wouldn't have been fair for them. Big states shouldn't be able to push around small states. Small states need to have a say in what happens. But they shouldn't have an overblown, gigantic say. So they met in the middle and both states agreed, or all the states agreed to the compromise. Both the big population states and the small population states agreed to it, and it made it into the Constitution. And the way we elect the manager of our intergovernmental system, the federal government, the way we do it is we allow the big population states to have more say in who it will be than the small population states. But we do not allow the big population states to have all the say in who it will be. The Constitution really is, like Patrick Henry said, it is we the states. It was negotiated to protect every state from the tyranny of every other state while allowing them to work together to benefit all the states. Democrats want to tear up the Constitution on a whim because they don't understand the fundamentals of how our federal government works or the history of how it was created. They're just a bunch of demagogues who come up with ideas that will appeal to the least common denominator. That's where their money and power is derived from. They are perfectly happy to profit off of ignorance. So they just come out and they go, oh, it's not democratic because it's not a popular vote. And everybody's just supposed to accept that. And people who do don't understand anything about the Constitution or federalism or how America works or where all these ideas in the Constitution came from. They don't know any of that. They're just ignorant. And they say, oh, Democrats didn't win the election. The orange man won the election because of the Electoral College. So get rid of the Electoral College. If that is the way that you think about the United States of America and the Constitution and everything that we do to have the greatest republic in the world, If this is how you view it as, oh, well, it would help my party win an election if we did it like this, you are an imbecile and you deserve to be called out on it. I almost never call people names because I actually hate name calling. It's my least favorite thing that President Trump does. So I try to never do it, but if one of my employees, anyone who holds office in the federal government, wants to change fundamental things about this country because they don't understand how this country works, because they clearly haven't taken a 9th grade civics class, I'm sorry, I'm calling that person an imbecile. And that is all there is to it. The Democratic Party profits off of ignorance. They appeal to the least common denominator. They are the political equivalent of fart jokes. All right. And while we're at it, if you need a pragmatic argument for the Electoral College instead of a philosophical one, how about this? If we used a national popular vote, a close election would be a national crisis. Do you want that to happen? Try to imagine the 2000 Florida recount happening in all 50 states at the same time. That's how it would be, because the question at hand wouldn't be Florida's votes, it would be the presidency. You'd have to recount everywhere, in every single state. Total nightmare, total disaster. It would be a total disaster. We'd be watching it all over TV. And it would be the residue of an ignorant idea designed to appeal to people who don't know how our government works in the first place. All right, so that's my story on the Electoral College, and I'm sticking to it. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe on iTunes, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get podcasts. And don't forget to go to predicted.com/promo/Patriots20. That's predicted.com/promo/Patriots20. Remember, they'll double your initial investment for up to $20. That's basically free money. Get on the internet and go get your free money. All right, thanks for listening. That's it for today. I'm out of here.
You just listened to Politics for Patriots with Eddie Zipper. Email the show at patriots@eddiezipper.com. And please subscribe.